The first candidate has met the qualification of receiving the majority vote. Member Rollo is now declared the chairperson for the 2026-2027 school committee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You may take the chair position.
Oh, we're gonna do the
Pacific, you have the chairs?
My seat or?
You're just swapping them, Mark.
Oh, you can stay there if you want to. You could.
No, I mean, I'll move there. I get through the whole nomination.
Before we move on, we'll allow you to have the floor. There is only one nomination that has been made. Is there a motion to make this a majority?
I'll make the motion.
We have Mr. Cusack making it. Cusack. Pittsburgh making it majority. Mark, I apologize. I'll probably do this for the rest of the year term here. Is there a second to make the?
Second.
We have a second, Ms. Donahoe, make a unanimous decision. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone objecting? Okay, seeing that there are no objections, the nomination will be considered a unanimous vote. At that point in time, Jim and Rollo will have the floor for the remarks if they would choose to.
All right.
And move on, you will take over and do the nomination for the vice chair.
All right. I have a very quick remark. First off, I just want to say thank you to everybody for the opportunity. Anybody who has watched one of these meetings over the past 2 years knows I typically don't just talk for the sake of talking. I often spend these meetings listening, absorbing, and chiming in when I believe I can add value. I've always seen my role on this committee to be pretty simple. Advocate for the long-term stability and success of the Braintree Public Schools. As chair, I will do everything in my power to make these meetings more accessible and engaging for the community as a whole. This includes things like taking these meetings physically to our school buildings and using any levers we can to make the time we spend here more efficient without compromising at all on substance. As a committee, I ask that we all prioritize the issues which materially impact our students and families, staff, and administration's day-to-day experience in our school buildings and focus on what matters. In the end, I can promise you all this. One, I will make mistakes, likely a lot, likely many tonight. I will need your help, also likely a lot. And while we might not always agree on the outcome of a conversation, I will always listen. So with that, we'll move on, I guess, to the vice chair process.
That's correct.
So I need a motion to open nominations for vice chair.
So moved.
And I need a second, correct?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, opposed? Any opposed?
Okay.
Yeah. So we are open for nominations. Anybody who has a nomination for vice chair, Ms. Donahoe?
I would like to nominate Mark Kurzberg.
Mr. Kurzberg, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? I don't see any. Do we have a motion to close the nominations?
So moved.
And second. So now,
All in favor?
huh?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, that there's
Yes.
a little statement that you can make if there's only one candidate. If only one nomination presented, is there a motion? That was it for acclamation?
Yeah.
Vote.
All right. So is there a motion and a second to accept by acclamation the nomination of school committee member Kurzberg as vice chairperson?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. And,
Opposed?
oh, opposed?
That's opposed.
Any opposed? Okay. It is unanimous.
And that's
Right. All right, now I need a motion to open nominations for recording secretary.
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is, we are open for nominations for recording secretary. Member Christopher?
I'll nominate, Joe Fogarty.
Joe, do you, or Member Fogarty, do you accept?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? I don't see any.
I nominate Rachel Horick.
Okay. We have,
Accept the nomination.
Yes.
all right, so. All right, do we have any other nominations? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the nominations for recording secretary?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so all those in favor of naming Member Fogarty our recording secretary? Raise your hand. I count 4. All those opposed? I count 3. So Member Fogarty,
Motion passes with
Yeah.
a 4-3 vote.
is that it?
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna move on to normal agenda.
At this point in time, my work is done,
Okay,
and I urge all of you for, and the next 2 years leading the community and as members of the Braintree School Committee. I apologize to Mr. Kurtzberg, but I'm still gonna call him Cusack from now on, but like I said, we knew the family for quite a while. Again, congratulations and best of luck to all.
thank you. All right, we'll see if I can make a bunch more mistakes here. All right, so we're gonna move to public comment. See anybody in the room? Is there anybody online for public comment? Okay. I don't see anyone online, so we'll move into routine matters. We need approval of open session minutes from December 8th and approval of open and executive session minutes from December 16th. Do I have a motion to approve, or are there any, I guess, questions about the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve both?
So moved.
Member Kurtzberg? Second. Member Donahoe? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Unanimous? All right. All right, and we're gonna move to communications and commendations.
There's change seats.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
Then we can do this next meeting too. I don't think we need to do this now. All right. Yeah.
Done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start off with some sad news. As I believe the school committee is aware, we had a former Braintree teacher pass away over the holiday vacation. Denise Fleming joined Braintree High School in 1999 and worked diligently as a school adjustment counselor at the high school for many years, just retired in June. She was enjoying her retirement and tragically passed away in late December. We were very aware of the situation and worked closely with the staff of Braintree High School with Mr. Principal Cuther to make sure the staff felt supported along with the students who knew Mrs. Fleming. So at this time, it would be most appropriate, I believe, to do a moment of silence in honor of Denise Fleming. Thank you very much. Moving on to our communications and accommodations. Braintree Public Schools has always enjoyed a very close relationship with the Braintree Rotary Club, and this year was no different. In December, members of the Braintree Rotary Club visited all 6 of our elementary schools and donated 400 dictionaries to every 3rd grade student in the district. We're very appreciative of that. Kindergarten registration is open for the 26-27 school year. The portal opened January 5th, and it's for both registering for full day and half day kindergarten students. Students are eligible for kindergarten if they turn 5 by August 31st. Parents and families should log into the BPS website to register their child. The registration portal is open from January 5th, so last Monday, until January 21st. Anyone registering after the 21st will be placed on a wait list for full day kindergarten as registration numbers will be reviewed. Currently, right now, we have about 163 students registered for kindergarten for next year, 151 for full day, and 12 for half day. That is about 75 students down from where we were at this point last year. So we'll continue to monitor the numbers and hope that this announcement makes more families get out there and register for kindergarten. We also want to recognize all the holiday music and concerts that happened in the district the month of December. We had concerts at many schools, including choral students, concert choirs, orchestras, wind ensembles, and concert bands. All musicians and singers shared their talents with our district and our community and did a terrific job getting us ready and into the holiday season. We also want to recognize Braintree High School for their Adopt a Family program. Many students were involved. They gathered over $9,000 in gift cards that were shared with a Braintree High School family in need. And then celebrating academic excellence, we had some students in the science department. Juniors, Julie Devane, Caroline Concanon, Emily McDonough, Maeve McGowan, and McKenna Pitts. They're all in their 2nd year of the healthcare pathway in their Project Lead the Way biomedical science course. This year, they're taking the Project Lead the Way human body systems course. They took part in a program with Student Solve and the 1-8 Foundation, along with some sophomores and some seniors. It's their 2nd time taking part in this contest where they're presented with a real world problem. They're given a chance to ask questions of a person from the industry, clarifying questions. They work on a design together collaboratively, and then they have opportunities to share ideas with the industry professional and get some feedback. This team of juniors created an infographic that impressed the industry professional and broke down a complex biomedical process into something that the general public would be able to easily understand. So congratulations to those students. And celebrating athletic excellence, the girls hockey team at the high school started out season 3-0-1, 3 victories over Bay State Conference play over Walpole 2-1, Needham 3-2, and Weymouth 3-0. They also played Boston Latin, who was not in the Bay State League, and had a 4-4 tie with them. This team is made up of students from grades 8 all the way to grade 12. And we want to congratulate all the players on the team, along with Coach Birchill, for a great start. And additionally, we want to congratulate some of our BHS wrestlers for a successful meet this weekend. Thomas Nguyen notched his 100th win and was named the most outstanding wrestler at the Peckham Invitational meet in Canton. Also, congratulations are in order for Michael Nigro for becoming the BHS all-time wins leader. He surpassed 115 wins on the wrestling mat, surpassing a record held by our own school committee member, Mark Herzberg. And also in your packets are the South Shore Elementary Collaborative quarterly reports and the finance and operation approved minutes from November 17th.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll move on to gifts to schools, which is a lengthy list. So I'll read through these and then we'll ask for an approval altogether. We have Braintree High School gifts to schools totaling $13,811.50. We have 1 deposit in the amount of $245 for transportation for the law field trip. 1 deposit in the amount of $244 for transportation for the BHS SAD field trip. 1 check in the amount of $312.50 for the Mass Society of CPAs for Credit for Life. 1 deposit in the amount of $3,010 from DECA. one check in the amount of $10,000 from the Y Pro program at UMass Boston to be used by the Science Department for professional development related to vertical alignment of curriculum and skills. We have Braintree High School athletics gifts to schools totaling $37,200.95. One check in the amount of $200 from the BEA for the turkey trot. One check in the amount of $200 from Lisa Pacino for the turkey trot. One check in the amount of $200 from Mento Corp for the turkey trot. One more check in the amount of $200 from Rustic Spirits for the turkey trot. One check in the amount of $21.90 from BSN Sport for BHS football. One check in the amount of $36,379.05 from the registration sign up for the BHS turkey trot. South Middle School gift to schools, $3,833. One deposit in the amount of $220 from the Washington DC trip and dance team. One deposit in the amount of $3,372 from the sixth grade TA fitness. One deposit in the amount of $241 for TA fitness, 66 and MMEA, $175. Highlands Elementary School gifts to schools, $1,130. One deposit in the amount of $1,130 for Highlands grade 3 and 4 field trip. Hollis Elementary School gifts to schools totaling $217.25. One deposit in the amount of $200 from the Brick and Beam Tavern fundraiser. One check in the amount of $17.25 from CAF America, Charities Aid Foundation, and Cyber Grants Team. Liberty Elementary School gifts to schools is $270. One deposit in the amount of $270 via the matching gift program from Gordon Brothers Group LLC and Al Koenig. East Middle School gifts to schools, $434. One deposit in the amount of $434 from the grade 6 field trip to Gillette Stadium. Morrison Elementary School gifts to schools totaling $1,003. One check in the amount of $1,003 from the South Shore Studies as reimbursement for school portraits. And lastly, it is Bay State Textiles gifts to schools, $732.90. We have 9 checks from Bay State Textiles in the amount of $50.70 for Morrison, $69.30 for South, $63.90 and $56.40 for Liberty, $43.50 for BHS, $111 for Hollis, $100.50 for Ross, $78.50 for Colbert, and $159 for Highlands. Do I have a motion to approve those gifts?
So moved.
Motion by Member Kersberg,
Second.
second by Member Donahoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. We'll move on to from the superintendent and staff. And I think we were going to make one move, moving the open architect presentation above the Braintree High School Program of Studies presentation.
Right.
So we'll do the administrative update and then move architects.
Right. So the past few meetings, we've had discussions about a new tool we've been using within our school system called Open Architects. It's a valuable data analytics platform that centralizes student data and allows us to track services and progress of individual students. Tonight, we welcome 4 BPS employees to talk about the platform, its use, and its effectiveness. We welcome to the table Flaherty school teachers Ellen Verone and Danielle Molinari, Flaherty School Principal Stacy Soto, and East Middle School Principal John Sheehan. Wow.
We'll start. Thank you all for having us. So we call OA, I'm just getting my voice back just so you know. So if it sounds a little raspy, it's actually on the mend. So sorry for that sound. So OA is Open Architects and is a, like Tim just said, it's an open platform for us to share in school. Look at all different variety of data, children. We can understand progress. We can check on dipstick and to see what's working, what's not, what we can tweak and what we can't do. And it puts everything in one place. and it follows our MTSS, our multi-tiered system of support for students. So we're making sure that every student is making individual personal growth towards meeting their goals for the year. Whether that's the state standards, whether that's a specific goal for a different area they might have, a content area or something else. So it puts everything into one place. So for the elementary schools, and then John will show you how we're using it, and then the teachers will come to give more specific to show you what it looks like. How we're using it at elementary schools, it's one platform where everything is automatically entered through our database overnight. So if we do DIBELS testing, which is a screener for early literacy, which we do in grades K to 2 and some third grade, all of those scores are automatically uploaded into the DIBELS platform. And then teachers have access to their classes, and they can click on the DIBELS little, which you'll see when they get to it, icon, and then you can see your class, and you can see either the whole class altogether, you can see student growth. And as we go through the years and we put in all the data, we'll be able to see, like a second grader, we can see their kindergarten scores and their first grade scores to see the tendency for growth. If there are bumps, maybe the same time of year, maybe there is some other kind of trend, you're able to see that. And it eliminates the need to put in every single child's scores, which is what we've been doing at elementary level for years, to just make it in one place. And teachers have to wait till other teachers put in their information. This way it's automatically uploaded. So anyone that works with that child can see that information, that data, or that trend. So you can also look, if I'm an interventionist, which we'll hear from Ms. Molinari, how she can see how her students are faring and how her interventions are working. So that goes for any common assessments that we give. So anything that's standardized, so the STAR reading test and math test we give in certain grades, and the DIBELS test, it also has a platform for our EL students and their access scores. So again, you don't have to wait for someone else to put the information in. It's automatically there. And then the best part for us as a team is everyone can look at the data platform together and analyze it and make suggestions for either changing or improving, or just tweaking either groupings, or kids work with certain teachers, or showing what's personally showing growth for that individual child. So it just gets everything in one place. And it also includes attendance. It includes in the upper grades, I'm not sure, but you talk about that, but there can also be one for discipline. There can be behavior. There can be one for, like I said, any common assessments, and MCAS, obviously. And all of those things are automatically put up there. So it's all in one place. So it's like one-stop shopping whenever you need it. So if any teacher needs to go in, they don't have to wait for anything else, and they can just compare that one student, they compare their groups or however else they want to. So it brings our whole staff together at the elementary level with so many people working with the kids. And through the years, you can see the progress and see the trends. And then when we pass them up to middle school, they now have the same platform, which John will share how that's helpful, because that is the part that we want to make sure we get that alignment really strong. So we're looking at the same data and benefiting what we do in fourth to go up to fifth.
You all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, great. I think she covered a lot of it already, but Open Architects is the system we use to better understand how our students are really doing. Not just in one class or in one test, but across academics, attendance, and behavior. It helps us make sure that no students are falling through the cracks, if you will, that they're getting the right help at the right time. Open Architects moves us from we think to we know. I think that's really important. It allows us to identify, support, and monitor students using real-time integrated academic, behavioral, attendance data instead of searching for spreadsheets, things that have been passed up from elementary, things on the DESE website, all this. And it also saves us from simply listening to anecdotal information we're getting from fourth grade up to fifth grade. So, and this is exactly what an MTSS system is supposed to do. This is how it's supposed to work. One of our struggles over the years has been sharing information, communication, and tracking interventions and progress. And now we're able to do this on one platform. And it's not often that I get excited about an app or a platform, but this is really what we've been looking for a long time. And I know we had a gentleman come out, I think it was last year, to talk to us about MTSS. And the big need that I had at the time was a system for tracking progress. We're looking at intervention. This has that. This has everything. I mean, I could get into all the things that Stacy was talking about, but the bottom line is Open Architects helps us make better decisions for kids. And when parents come in to meet with us, it helps us better explain to them why we're doing what we're doing. Gives them the information that they. So we'll just turn it over to the teachers and they can walk you through what it looks like.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danielle Molinar. I'm a math specialist at Flaherty.
And Ellen Barone, third grade teacher at Flaherty.
With the MTSS system, the first thing that our goal is to identify students in need, whether it's academic, behavioral, social, emotional. The MTSS system is for the whole child. So when we use OA, we're really looking at data to identify students. So some of the widgets that are available on OA are what we call the Student Explorer, which is just a general overview of a teacher's entire class and all the different data points that are pulled in. So that would be the image on the left where it kind of shows MCAS data, STAR math, STAR reading data, and DIBELS and access score data. And if you look at all of those bar graphs, the really cool feature about OA is if you click on any given kind of performance bands, like meeting expectations, partially meeting expectations, below expectations, if you click on any of that, it filters all of the data out and shows you just the students that fit that criteria. So if you look at that Brace kind of redacted box on the left, that would be student names in your classroom. So it's a really great feature on the platform just to kind of focus in on who might be struggling and where might they be struggling within just a general overview of the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I think just along that, and if we're looking at who of my kids didn't hit a certain benchmark, then we can look and just pinpoint those. Or if I wanted to look at who is exceeding and how can we push them, or what does their growth look like? I think that's a big thing too, is that we not only want to meet the expectation, we want our kids growing regardless of their level. And I think that's really important. This is an easier way, instead of, as we said, looking at 500 different platforms to see who's making progress and who isn't.
So the Student Explorer is like a general overview of all of the data, but there are widgets to explore MCAS data, DIBELS data, and STAR math and reading data. So when you want to kind of look at, okay, the student is struggling, they're not meeting expectations, where are things falling apart? You would go into one of those widgets. So for example, if you look at the DIBELS one, you can see all that different color coding. That's showing you the students' areas of strengths and their areas of weakness. So when you're starting to form intervention groups, you can form groups of students that have like strengths or like weaknesses that you want to target in that intervention. So it's really helpful for interventionists to know these 6 students will work well together because this is an area that data has identified is a weakness of theirs that we need to kind of build up and intervene on. Same thing with MCAS. If you look at that kind of circled area of that plot graph, that's all students that are identified as low growth and low performance, which are things that we're looking for. Students might not be performing at grade level yet, but if they're making significant growth, that's great. That's what we're hoping for. You can't get from point A to point B without kind of that journey in between. And the journey isn't just a straight line. So when we're thinking about students and where they're struggling, we also want to think about and highlight and celebrate the growth they're making within those areas. So again, these bar graphs are all interactive and they're all filterable. So that kind of boxed in area, those students that are those bubble kids that are just barely meeting or just below, we call those sometimes the bubble kids that can kind of waver either direction. Oftentimes they're the ones that don't always get identified because we have those kids that are significantly below. So it's really helpful and meaningful for interventionists and classroom teachers to be able to filter out that data and really look at who's getting what they need, who needs more, who is succeeding with what they have, and can we pull back a little bit. So with this is just kind of an overview of how we identify the students that we might build interventions for.
And just to add, as a classroom teacher, I think a big piece too is lots of times I will go to individual interventionists and say, oh, has this student been brought up before? And this is a great way where before I even go to ask my questions, I can look and see, oh, they were talked to, they didn't receive or they did receive intervention in the past. Is this new for this child? That kind of thing. For me, I've had more this year with just like looking at, is this a pattern? Like asking myself with a particular behavior or a child, like, is this a pattern or is this just like a bad day, with a student.
So once we use data-driven decisions to create interventions, interventionists can document their interventions through the intervention widget. So here I have an example of one of my intervention groups. I'm able to tag myself as the interventionist. I can list what I am focusing on within that group. I have a little description there where I always describe how the students, what data point I use to identify the students, what I'm working on within that, and what district approved resource I'm using to intervene. And then the students would be listed on the right where I can exit and enter new students as needed. And then on the bottom, there is a progress log, which we'll talk about on the next slide, but it's a place where I can kind of track their progress and track their attendance within a given intervention. One other way that interventionists can note interventions is in the student notes section, where you can add notes to kind of track student interventions or student data. And this is where we would kind of log those decap accommodations that might be happening for students that aren't on documented IEPs or 504s, but they're receiving regular interventions that they need to be successful in the classroom. Things like that are really important to have that vertical communication from grade to grade so that teachers know, oh, these are the types of things the student needs to be successful. If you notice, like there are some like different teachers that have documented different things in student notes. It's just a really great way to communicate, and at least in the elementary level, it's really hard to find common planning time and time to communicate about how students are doing throughout the school week. So this is just one other platform where we can have that kind of communication. I can tag Ellen if I add a note to a student that's in her classroom, letting her know I put some extra data in there for her to take a peek. So it is just one of those other forms of communication that's, like they had said, it's a one-stop place where you can find stuff.
And I think it's really important too, is that we take a lot of data, and we take a lot of notes and all these things, and we've been doing for years in Google Docs and sharing with one another, but you're going to like several different spots. And then, we don't exactly know, certain things get passed on to the middle school, but it would be nice to see if a child, was receiving an intervention or not. Or like we said, if a kid doesn't have a 504, but we've been offering them these accommodations, this is a great place to put it so that they, when do go to 5th grade, these things don't get lost. And as I said, I don't think it's, it's just a nice place to have us all logging into the same place instead of saying, oh, I've taken all my notes here and I've taken all my notes here, and Flaherty does it one way and Morrison does it another way and Liberty does it another way. We would all be on the same page. And when you go to the middle school, I mean, I have worked in the middle school prior, long time ago, before Flaherty, and I just think this would be a great way to, before you had to go and find, a contact at the elementary level, you have a lot of data right here in front of you.
So once we've used data-driven decisions to identify students and we've created interventions, the last kind of step in this process is tracking student growth. So the OA platform does a really great job of this. They have the Dibbles widget, which will track student progress monitoring. There's also progress logs that are attached to the intervention. So I add a progress log every time I take any data on students. I'm able to scan any data and I can link those scanned documents into a progress log as well. So if a teacher's wondering why they got a given score or a certain comment, they can click on that link and physically see the data that I collected from that student. It's also great for taking attendance. So ideally, an intervention will happen for 6 to 8 weeks, but you also want to make sure that a student is actually present and attending within that time frame. So it does a good job of making sure not only do I have those 6 to 8 weeks, but the student was present for that intervention for that time period. There's also a progress monitoring report that's attached to the intervention group. So it will take just those students. So for me, that's great because I pull from multiple classrooms to form my intervention groups. Whereas classroom teachers can only see their class data, I want to be able to look at progress within my intervention groups, not have to click from class to class. So it's just one nice feature for interventionists that pull from across the building.
Yeah, and I just think it's also, as I said, we've tried like Google Docs and sharing in different ways before. This is a nice way that all her notes and data I can see easily.
Any comments from Member Fogarty?
I had a question about the interventions. Are those interventions like automatically generated by the software based on the data, or do the teachers actually write the interventions like from scratch?
So the data would indicate what type of intervention is needed, but an interventionist would then build the intervention around those student needs using the district materials that we have provided for us.
I was just wondering if like, does the software provide like a drop down, right, or like give you options to click? I want this intervention, or is it like something?
No, so when you're looking at the data, like say, for instance, STAR Math, I can see the domains and how they scored within those domains. There's standards of mastery reports that come out where I can then target and say, oh, these students scored below mastery on this given standard. And then I would build my intervention around that standard to try and build a foundation of support so they can show growth in that area.
Member Hor.
You're collecting a lot of great data about our students. Thank you for your work. And I think this solves a great problem. My question is, are parents able to see all this data that's being collected about their children in their classrooms?
Parents can request certain standardized reports from the interventionist or their classroom teacher, yes.
Okay, how do they do that?
Reach out to the teacher or myself or the interventionist.
Yeah, I don't think there's, that I know of, a like parent piece of all of it. Is that? Yes.
Please. Sorry. So I don't believe there's a portal piece for parents. However, the platform has just come out with a new report that's easily generated for about specific students. That's very easy for parents to read. That being said, I think it's important that you don't just give that to someone. You have to walk them through what each thing means. So for example, the STAR data, it's more than just the score on a test. It's a screener. There's so many more nuances to those, to the testing data that you can't just send it out. You need to walk people through it. So.
Okay, I can appreciate that because all these tests tell you different things. It's not MCAS where they just give you a score. Right. And it's not that you're not looking at any one piece of data. You have to analyze them all as a whole to get a whole view of the student. Right.
Yeah, I think it's more of, it would be helpful during like conferences when you're sitting down with a parent and you can explain each of the pieces.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I had one thing too, Rachel, sorry.
Yeah.
It also is important because it's not a pass fail. And when you share data with parents, they think it is a test. And did they pass? Did they fail? Did they meet? Should I panic? Should I not? Whereas just getting really fine tuning into standards of what they're learning in that grade level. And maybe the goal is not mastery in January of third grade. Maybe it's really a June of third grade, but we can see the trend because like you said, this is about the teachers understanding the data and analyzing. It's not just the platform telling us. So it's important that you don't set up alerts when there's no alerts, but anytime there is alerts, staff always notify families that there are alerts of why they're in groups. And our interventionists do send home notes and, acknowledge progress and whatever with families as well.
And I guess a follow-up question to that is on the report cards for elementary school, they get a 1, 2, or 3. Do these kinds of, does the Open Architects platform help you identify where they fall within the 1, 2, or 3 for all the competencies?
Yeah, I guess it does because it takes the data, for instance, STAR. I could go to the Renaissance website and look at that, and then I could go to Dibbles and look at that, where if I went into Open Architect and I looked at, say, student A, and I could see, oh, they hit the benchmark for Dibbles and they're able to read fluently and accurately, but maybe on their STAR data, they're not at meeting expectations yet, or that, they're partially meeting or something like that. So that could tell us that the child may not be at a 3, but they are close to it. And that's one thing about this report card is that 2 is such a broad window, so that's an area where you could quickly go. I will say as a classroom teacher, STAR isn't the whole report card.
I think it's important to note that the nationally normed assessments are not the end all be all of your child. I think it's really important to know that teachers are taking formative and summative assessment every day while they're teaching your child, and they can see if they're independently working at mastery or need some some guidance or some breakdown of the test, some differentiation, or aren't accessing grade level material yet. These are just one snapshot of your whole child. And some kids come in and have an awful day and it's a one-off assessment that happens 3 times a year. Other students have testing anxiety and they shut down and they perform well day to day and can show mastery of standards independently within the classroom setting, but on a test just fall apart. And I think it's really important to keep in mind the whole child and their social, emotional well-being. And it is helpful to just kind of, when you have students in front of you in September, see, oh, where do my students fall or where have they fallen historically in the past, just to have an eye on it. But at the end of the day, the teachers see your children in town all day long and are really seeing how they're accessing the curriculum and interacting with grade level materials in the moment and are able to adjust then. So although OA has a great wealth of data, it is not the only data that we use from day to day with students.
Right. I think it's definitely, I think what Danielle is saying is spot on. It's definitely at the beginning of the year when you're doing that first data and you're just getting to know these children. I think it's great to see, okay, who should I look at first? Like, is this a concern or is this where they've historically fallen or, things of that nature. And as far as the report card goes, certain line items, like for instance, are they fluently reading at where they're supposed to for the 3rd grade? That's a cut and dry. They're reading this many words or they're not. But a lot of the report card, especially at the elementary level, it encompasses so much that it's more about their day-to-day work than it is about these standardized tests.
I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Member Tuffy?
Thank you. I think this is a great program. It's really helpful to have all the data together. I do have one area of concern, and that is student privacy and especially with observational notes regarding behavior. Are there any safeguards in place to ensure that are the teachers trained in what kinds of things that are acceptable to put into this platform that's going to follow them through their career, school career, or what might not be a good thing to include?
I think at least we have talked at our building about, being very factual with your notes for your, not having them be more opinion based, if you will. But really taking your notes based on what, if this is something I try to say, if I'm saying this to the parent, then, of course maybe you would be more open with the parent than you would be on open architect. But I think a lot of us, especially when we know the notes are being passed along to upper grades, that, you are mindful with your note taking. But I understand what you're saying is that you would want to make sure that as a district, that there are guidelines as to what can and cannot go in the notes. But I think it's along the same lines of when you're emailing with parents, take a breath. Like if something is bothering you, wait 24 hours before you put in what you plan to put in.
Ms. Duffy, I completely share your concerns about this. And at the middle level, at least at East, all of the notes that typically come out of our SST meetings, they actually come through me first, and I review the notes and make sure that they're in there, a format that doesn't paint people in a light where there's opinions. Right? It's factual, it's very factual, as you said. In terms of behavior in open architects, we're not, at East at least, we're not taking behavior notes in open architects. I personally also have an issue with even Aspen maintaining behavior notes, but that's a district question, something people need to talk about and think about. But I share your concerns, and I will say I know Ms. Soto as well. We're very careful about what we're putting into Aspen and open architects because it does follow them.
Thank you. That's reassuring.
Yeah, and one other part is that everyone's granted access. So like Ellen doesn't have access to anything except for her 3rd grade classroom.
And I can't see the 4th graders now that they're no longer in my class, if
Right.
that helps. So.
And then, but Danielle, who works with the entire Flaherty, has access to Flaherty, but she can't go see Hollis. So it is, and then the access changes year to year depending upon who it is. So once we pass the children on to East, John will assign the kids who have the teachers who have those students, and they will be able to see it. But like you said, Ellen, we can no longer see
But
that.
I can
when they're on.
only see my current students.
So it's kind of like your grade book, right? When you're in the olden days, when you had a grade book and you wrote it down by pencil, but instead of just having a number, you have more data there to show what the grade is. And then you utilize that grade book to help you make determinations on students, but you're not running around showing your grade book to everybody around, right?
Member Donohoe?
Just a kind of, I think it's kind of an amazing database, and I'm just curious if you guys have thought about uses outside of MTSS. I guess a couple examples that came to my mind were identifying students that excel, and maybe think about what programs outside of school you could suggest to parents so that they could kind of make sure they stay challenged. And also if there's some customized, if it's customizable enough to track kids on IEPs and 504s, because that seems like a good way to keep everything in one place and be able to look at that as well. So I'm not sure if it's been thought that way, but I think it seems like there's a lot of data there that could be used.
Personally, I do look at it that way because I do try to, you know, I want as I said at the beginning, I kind of want everyone to grow. So I have looked at, say, for instance, is a high kid. That's great that they, you know, are exceeding expectations, but are they making progress? Are they still improving? And looking at the data that way. But personally, I think that's very helpful.
Any other comments? I just had one question. When you log something, is it permanent? So I'm assuming is that like an audited thing, or could
It can be deleted.
the staff delete it? Okay.
Yes, it is editable, deletable.
Okay.
I can go and update notes that I previously written.
Yeah, we realized, for instance, even if you want to go back, or wanted to go back and link a document, you know, so you can pretty much delete the whole thing and modify the whole thing however you want.
If changes are made, is there like an audit trail that keeps a record of the past versions on it?
Item.
I mean, I assume because it's on the internet that there is some way to track history of it. I don't see any of my old edits. You know how you can go into Google Doc and look at history. I haven't found any way to do that. But I'm sure a trail
I'm
exists.
sure if there, you know, someone from OA could answer that, you know, about whether or not, say, if, for instance, something was deleted, but you really needed it back, you know.
We have any more comments? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Guys, thank you very much.
We can move on now to the consideration of first reading or approval for the Braintree High School Program of Studies for 2026-2027.
The table, Principal Kuther. Share the Braintree High School Program of Studies. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you to school committee. Congratulations on our new members joining us tonight. So, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Braintree High School regarding the program of studies. We sent you an edit sheet, so a redlined copy and the official copy of what you'll eventually be voting on. Just thought it's important you understand a little bit the process that we go through with the POS. So 2 months ago, met with directors, and we called the directors and my assistant principals all together, principals cabinet. So the cabinet met. We talked about the fact that we had to move forward with the POS. With the first step in the scheduling cycle is we come up with a program of studies so that we can then move the program of studies forward for students selection. And so we have to go through that in the November, December timeframe so that it gets approved in January, so we can move into the scheduling process that gets us to our final schedule tallies and things of that nature by April. So it's a lengthy process. Regarding the program of studies, that with the meet with the directors and, you know, basically challenge the directors, go through, look at your areas. Are there course descriptions that need improvement? Are there new courses that we're adding? Are there courses that should be removed? So we have that conversation in a large group, and then basically myself, Anthony Garofalo, our head of guidance, Andy Dellery, who's our scheduler, meet with each of those directors to come back and say what changes are in place. And so we have individual meetings where the four of us go through just their sections. If there's something new that's been recommended, or there's something that needs faculty input, the individual teacher that might be teaching that course joins us. So we had a couple meetings where we had a teacher come in and sit down and walk through some of the changes that we're looking at. And the last piece, we're looking at this really critically with an eye towards NEASC, which is happening in the next 4 years. Because when the New England Association arrives, one of their foundational elements is that any course that we have to have written curriculum for. And so if there's no written curriculum, then you shouldn't be teaching the class. That's NEASC's perspective, right? And so we would agree with that piece. 99% of our stuff we do have written curriculum for, but there's a challenge that goes with that too. So like you'll see in like in our music piece, where we talk about adding Learn to Jam to our second course. Currently, you can take Learn to Jam as a semester course, and then you can take Learn to Jam again as a semester course. But there's no differentiation course descriptions, right? And so I'm looking at that, challenging the music department to say, if there's a Learn to Jam 2, it's got to be different than Learn to Jam 1 if we're going to give course credit for that, right? And so they're now working on, they'll begin starting to develop those curriculum documents that we need to have really done by 2029, but that they'll align so that there is a difference between those two courses in reference to skills being taught, the curriculum being taught, and what's necessary in that regard. So we really, my understanding is this a little bit more change than you're used to seeing. So we went through with a pretty critical eye looking at it, saying, what are we running? Are we really running this class? When's the last time we ran that class? If there's things that haven't been running a while, we've asked to have them removed. Some of that because you have to have a person that can write that curriculum if necessary. And then secondly, should that course be there if we're not really offering it? Well, that's sort of the process that we go through. We finalize that, put it out at a final draft to the directors. Directors read over their sections, tell me that they're all set with the changes are in place, and then we send it to you. So that's what brings us here tonight. When you look at the edit document that we sent you that has the bulleted pieces, the changes that were made, probably the largest piece that you just see some themes running through it is our ICP coursework. That's our career pathways piece. We're actually coming in line with what the state calls Innovation Career Pathways. That's a grant that we receive in the two areas of healthcare and in business. So we currently are running 2 pathways at the high school. So some of the course titles are aligned to make sure that we're in alignment with what the state is looking for in that regard. So you'll see different bullets that speak to that theme. And then also starting to lay some of the foundation for potential new pathways. So our changes in our television courses, the names and course descriptions, long range, we believe that there's a potential for there to be a career pathway in communications and television, and trying to work something in that regard with BCAM and some of the other pieces that we potentially have partnerships right in the building. So that's some of the mindset behind what goes into changing the program of studies. If you have questions about any of the edits, I certainly can answer them or speak to them. I'd sort of open it up at this point to you in that regard.
I just want to ask one question. So this was either a first reading or approval. We meet again on the 26th, I believe, the school committee. So how much would you want this tonight? Is the 26th okay? Does that put you behind the time?
Well, it would push our schedule a little bit. I mean, we can wait until the 26th. If we could get it tonight, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Just because, the further you get, before it's approved, we're not putting anything out that's been approved. So we would have to wait till the 26th to then get ready to, distribute, get out to kids' hands. So it would decrease the time that students have to look over the course descriptions if we have to.
Okay. Any comments? Member Tuffy?
I have some questions about the dual enrollment with local colleges offered with students in the innovation career pathways.
Okay.
So recently, Situate School Committee expanded its dual enrollment partnership with Quincy College to include courses like pre-calculus, where students can receive transferable college credits upon course completion at a much lower cost than standard tuition. This program of studies recommends removing SAT lab courses, English and biology seminars, which were, it's my understanding, were designed to help students if they wanted to move up a level. So how would they achieve that without the seminar? In the past, the kids, so if somebody wanted to switch up a level in math, they might take pre-cal over the summer at Quincy College or something like that. So we have dual enrollment, but it's just for the business and healthcare pathways right now. Do we have are we considering expanding dual enrollment?
So we have dual enrollment for almost all courses, all right? That if there's so the career pathways courses they're required courses or courses that we don't have the ability to offer. And so a student takes that through Quincy College because it's part of the career pathway. But if a student wanted to take pre-calculus across the summer and requested to do that at Quincy College, Massasoit, any of those schools, they can request to do that. They request that through the guidance counselor. Eventually that would come to me for approval. And so we've approved dual enrollment courses before. I haven't approved any here. But I would say to you that most schools in the Commonwealth would approve a college level course from a community college and a dual enrollment.
Do the students at Braintree High School who take a class at a community or other college have a tuition break like the Situate students?
So this
said they're paying $200 or $300 for a course instead of full tuition.
So the Situate program is a program that we're using right now in business and healthcare that potentially could expand into our regular school day. So Quincy College offers a dual enrollment opportunity where our course teachers meet with Quincy College course teacher and look at the curriculum and see where our curriculum aligns. And if there's adjustments that need to be made to the Braintree High School curriculum to meet the Quincy College curriculum piece, they then give us college credit. Kid takes our class at Braintree High School for college credit at a significantly reduced rate. Now, we're not doing that in the calculus right now, but that opportunity is there for us. I think long range, as we continue to grow the pathways piece, that those opportunities will become available to our students. So I think that's an open door that we're exploring and working through. Some of it is your curriculum has to match what Quincy College wants to have, the standards that they're expecting to be taught to be given college credit. So if the divide is close, you can modify and work through those things. If the divide is significant, then it's a lot of work to try to make that happen, and it might not necessarily be able to be done in our school day or our school timeframes. So there's work being done in that area, but it's not available right now. But I do think I can speak to Miss Cat. She was a Marshfield High School graduate. Megan Cassidy is the person that runs the program for Quincy College. She meets with Lauren Carrero, our career counselor at the high school, and they meet and start having conversations about those topics. And so we look at this course, that course, and start to push those pieces through. So I think there's opportunity for that to happen.
We have just a couple of follow-ups. So I noticed that when we got down to the special services programs, Alliance and Achieve, the dual enrollment was crossed out. So are those students not participating in dual enrollment courses, or is it in another context?
So it's in a different context. So they're part of our regular dual enrollment opportunity. So we felt that they could meet the expectation there. We would do that. With our special program students, we use EduSeer as our online opportunity for coursework. And we find that to be an area that they're more successful with. So a lot of our kids would take an online course through that opportunity, but they could certainly take a dual enroll. Any student could take a dual enrollment opportunity at Braintree High. It's just got to go through the process to be approved through the guidance counselor to me.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. Should I go ahead?
Yep.
Okay, so on page 9, AP exams, the program of study says readers from schools and colleges across the country grade the exams. Is that still true, or are some of the exams graded using AI, given the issue that we had last year with AI grading errors on MCAS?
That is actually still true. They collect annually, they'll ask for individuals who are teaching those areas or those classes to be released from their academic duties to go and actually score exams. A main portion of the multiple choice questions are certainly scored electronically, but the written expression, especially in the comp exam, the lit exam, and any of the language exams, those are areas that they still bring people together across the country to score the exams. I can't speak to the fact that we've had anybody attend that recently, but we have. So that I'm not aware of who that is, but if we've had people who have shown interest and they want to take part in that, they can take part in it, and it's a very valuable experience because then they find out what the College Board's looking for in answering the questions.
Okay, and on page 17, see any changes in enrollment in the English learner classes? Are they increasing, decreasing, or staying about the same?
So I can only speak to the trend that's happening this year because I've been part of the trend that's happening this year. My understanding is last year we had significant transfers in the area of English language learners. Most of that is significantly minimized. So we do not have a lot of new ELs joining our student population. There's a lot of reasons for that piece. So we haven't had that. Our classes aren't growing leaps and bounds because we haven't had the same number of transfers into I would say probably into the community of Braintree. That would be my guess.
And my last question is about chorus and orchestra. Aren't we running chorus and orchestra on 26, 27?
So it's dictated by numbers. And so our numbers currently dictate that we run chamber orchestra instead of orchestra. That we run our select choir rather than our just a general chorus opportunity. Students have access to those courses and will be in those courses, but we don't have with the number of sections that we have to teach academically with our 2 music teachers, we're limited by the offerings that we can establish. And so you'll see that's why we're keeping them in the program of studies, because we do think there's going to be an ebb and flow with that. One year it's going to be the orchestra, next year it might be chamber orchestra. This year, our wind ensemble and our band were both significant. We're both the same in numbers, but based on who's graduating and who's coming in. So those numbers are going to fluctuate for the next few years. And, unless we have more teaching sections available to run more music courses. And we have to have students select those courses. I want to make sure I say that, right? In our current configuration, that's what we need to do to meet our students' needs.
Okay, thank you. That was it for me.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Dr. Hoare?
Thanks for being here tonight. So I've talked in this school committee a lot about my aversion to removing courses. I count 13 courses removed from the program of studies. I do see a couple of additions. But like Ms. Tuffy was saying, another one that's not going to be offered in 26, 27 is AP Music Theory. I think that the public and our families need to know that these things are not going to be offered and the students may have been counting on them. And so some of the things that I'm concerned with is the dramatic cuts, right? 13 classes, that's a lot, right? Can you tell me a little bit about exploring computer science which has been removed. There's not very many other computer science options in the program of studies. And as we've seen in the past few years, the proliferation of AI and the importance of knowing computer science has never been more valuable to our graduates. Can you talk a little bit about what brought you to that decision, or are there constraints that we can't offer it anymore?
No, in that reference to that course, the level of that course does not meet the needs of our students anymore. So our students are advanced past the exploration stage. And so the course itself isn't going to fill, because if our students took that course, they're past what was being taught in that course in previous years. Now, it has been offered in a while. And so when we look at it, I'd be the first to say to you, if you want to talk about opportunities, we're certainly limited with what we can do, because we need more people. We need teaching staff, and we need to add, positions to be able to offer some of the elective opportunities that our school needs. I've shared that with leadership, so we've had that conversation in leadership as to, but when you look at what courses are there, the computer science courses that we do offer, the higher level courses are the courses that are filling. And the lower level courses, the entry level piece is really when a student gets to the high school, they've already surpassed what was being offered. It's probably really more of a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade level class. And so we look at that and we say, let's pull that out. It's not appropriate. So I would say big picture, certainly if you were, there's not a lot of new opportunities in here because we're limited by what we can do. The reality is that I'd be the first to say that I'd love to see more computer science offerings in here. We are in, desperate need of business offerings and business opportunities. I have one business teacher. As in reference to music is a significant area that, we just know the number of teaching sections that we have to manage. And, so I would say certainly, if we want to grow our opportunities, one of the key pieces to growth is that we have to be able to hire the professionals that are able to teach those pieces. And it's not sometimes we talk about repurposing. It's not really about repurposing. There are needs that need to be met. And so we look at that and say, I would sit here and say we could use positions, right? And I'll leave it at that. If we came back and said, these are the things that we need, it would be a significant increase in budget. That certainly would be the case. And I'm probably speaking for my colleagues in the elementary and middle when I say that as well, right? I'm just speaking to the high school. We could use some technology opportunities at the high school in a technology department. We have space that we probably could dedicate to some of that, but we don't have the bodies of the people to be able to make some of that happen. And so we're trying to be creative. We held off on our pathway conversations this year because really when you move some of these pathways in, it requires additional coursework that you have to have people, that can teach it. And some of them are highly skilled professional areas that we'd have to look to try to hire somebody into that spot. And, with I guess the question about where we are in reference to funding, it's difficult to bring an engineer in and say, come and teach engineering for us, right? When competitively, we're just not in a spot to be able to make that commitment.
I can see that. Thank you.
Probably not the answer we wanted to hear, but that's reality. And I'm sure you're all aware of that. I'm not, but that's the reality of the conversation.
It is. And so we're going to be looking at budget season coming up in the next few months. And these kinds of things are really important so that we know the opportunities that our students are losing because of continued limited resources going toward teaching and learning. When I first joined the school committee 2 years ago, we had approved the Arabic course. And I see that that's no longer on the program of studies, and Intro to Latin and Roman World. Particular affiliate. I love Latin. I took many years in college and high school. Talk a little bit about those, that they will not be available anymore.
So I'd start first with Latin. So the last time we had Latin at high school, Dr. Scully ended up having to teach the class because we couldn't hire a professional. Latin is pretty much so being eliminated from high school coursework across the board. There's no one going into the profession of teaching Latin.
Mhm.
So consequently, there's no one out there to teach the course itself. And so the Latin piece, very few high schools have kept Latin once their Latin teacher has retired. And so it's difficult. You know, if there's 3 Latin teachers in the Commonwealth, I'm saying that facetiously, but there's not a lot. And most of them are retiring and there's no one coming into that profession to follow through. Colleges and universities used to require it. They're not looking for it anymore, even though it's needed in some areas. There's just not a lot of draw for that piece. The Arabic piece we haven't run because we haven't been able to hire the professional, and we're pretty confident that if we tried to, you know, if there's 5 certified Arabic teachers on the South Shore, I would come back and say to you, you know, they're in pretty stable settings and they're not looking to jump into a spot where they might lose their job in a year. So the reality is some of that is trying to hire that practitioner or that person that can manage teaching that class in a highly skilled area, right? So that's the reality of why we're removing it.
Yeah, and I can speak to Arabic.
Sure.
We approved that course. It was because of a specific staff member that we had, and that staff member left. And so we had approved one section of her caseload of other courses. She left. So without that specific person, we didn't have the teacher to do it.
Thank you for helping. So we're down to French and Spanish for world languages. Is that correct? So they could teach, okay. It's hard because there's not much opportunity for learning other languages, but budget being that it is. And it looks like and like Ms. Tuffy was saying, we've removed a lot of music classes and put a couple on hold for the next year. They've proposed to add guitar ensemble, jam lab, and learn to jam too. And that's very nice that we're trying to do new things, but it still troubles me that we're taking away more courses and offering more courses than we're adding back for especially music.
Just in reference to music, the other piece is there is a changing dynamic that's happening with music. So we have a large, I believe it's East, I want to say it's East, I'm not sure, but at East, we have a large guitar ensemble group that began in 7th grade. I'm reaching with that, but I'm 7th or 8th grade. That group is coming to the high school next year. So one of the things that we are going to need to do is to meet this group of 30 or 40 guitarists that are now going to be part of a guitar ensemble at the high school. So we're trying to meet the needs of our kids as well. Now, if you'd have told me 10 years ago we'd have a guitar ensemble, I laughed, right? But when I first heard about it was through the program of studies, and you know, Mr. Sawtell saying, so we have this large guitar group coming next year that's going to be part of our performances and part of our, and so in working through what that looks like and how they play out, you know, that's part of it. So I do think like when they started Learn to Jam, we've given them some new names. So we used to call it Foundations of Music. And so I read Foundations of Music and I'm like, you know, I took that course 35 years ago when I was in high school, and I'm giving myself a little range there, but it was, you know, foundations are very different. When we come up with Learn to Jam, it's an opportunity for kids to come and create music and actually go through and do the creation piece from, you know, guitar to, you know, they play buckets for drums, right? And they're doing all sorts of different things. Well, it's a hit with kids. Kids love it. And so, you know, when the kids found out there's going to be a Learn to Jam too, they were very excited with it. And again, you'd look at the course and say, where did this come from? I think there's a changing meeting of the needs of our students that's happening there too. So some of that is really great in that we're at really front edge in reference to trying to make sure that we're giving our kids access to music in different ways. And trying to meet, you know, with our leadership to say, what are the ways best to name these courses? So some of it's in naming conventions, just to make them attractive to students.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other comments? Stella?
I think I have one housekeeping thing that I think might be incorrect on, so on page 25, what's in entertainment marketing was renamed to principles of marketing. Then on page 26, looks like the second piece of that class didn't get renamed. And the prerequisites stated as sports and entertainment marketing. So I think that just needs to be.
Ah. Thank you for that. We'll get that changed, right? It'll be principals.
And then I don't know if I necessarily have questions, but just kind of some observations and thoughts I had about the program of studies. English language development courses, we have 7 in total. And I just found that interesting because I reviewed some programs of studies from other schools and they had like 2, 3, or 4. So I think that's something just to look at as far as you had said, the enrollment seems to be getting lower. So maybe there's something we should think about. Should we consolidate some of those or, is it necessary to have 7? I think one of the other things, and this is more just, my thoughts, but, I see like personal finance. I know that's in the business pathways. That's something to me, I think that every student should get before they leave high school, regardless of what they end up doing after high school, as well as public speaking. Just as a comment, I think those 2 classes are so important. No matter what someone does in the future, it'd be really cool to see that be mandatory at some point. And I think I did want to comment, we have 19, I think, AP courses, and I think that's really awesome. Some of the best schools in Massachusetts don't have less than that, so we're right up there with them. But I do share the same sentiments with Ms. Tuffy and Ms. Horrick about, there's just been so many offerings that have dwindled over the years. So I actually pulled the program of studies from when I was in high school, which I won't talk about that date either. But there's things like food services, woodworking, lots of computer classes. I mean, there was dedicated photography classes, CAD, architectural drawing, like the list keeps going on and on. And I mean, obviously there's budget issues, but I think we would just want to, keep in mind that these things have been lost and haven't come back. And, it's important, I think, just for the general public to understand that too. So I just want to point that out. But
Any other comments?
One, just want to say thank you for being here, but also thank you for everything you've done for Braintree this year. As someone who's been able to witness it firsthand, the culture at Braintree High School has changed dramatically since your arrival, and I'm a little sad that we don't get to keep you for longer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Back to the studies, in terms of work language. Just in terms of like what our students are going to need preparing them, is there any discussion around maybe offering Mandarin?
We didn't have conversations about that this year. My guess when the Arabic piece came up, there was conversations about Mandarin being one of the languages that we offer. Some of that is that you have to be able to put that piece in place, and a language is hard to build because when you build, you can't hire the full-time staff member because you're really going to start with just one section of it, right? And so I do think long range, if Gail Ward was here, I think she'd come back and talk about Arabic, and she'd talk about Mandarin as the 2 languages that, long range, will those become offerings? Currently most schools across, I can speak to the South Shore, most schools across the South Shore are finding Spanish is 90% of our students, and 10% of them take French. So I have had some experience with that. We didn't have that conversation this year, but I'm certain that, if they were looking to add languages, that would be the area that we're talking about. I think the other thing I would say is, as you talk about those spaces, so that's a core area. It's like our English core area. When we start talking about where, the opportunities our students have, we need more elective offerings. Quite honestly, we need more elective offerings in those specialty areas that I talked about, and then inside our core areas. Because we need to get our students in a spot where they're able to take those opportunities, but that it increases time on learning. And so when we start talking about where those cuts are, if there's cuts and what we have to do budget-wise, you're really looking at the core areas, our spaces that we're going to be talking about.
Thank you.
So just in reference to world language, that's hard. You want to bring Mandarin in, but what do we do? Right? It's just thoughts.
Any other comments? Does anybody have an issue with approving tonight? No. I have a motion.
as long as the correction gets made.
The correction will be made.
Yeah, I don't have a.
Yeah. I get a motion to approve. Member Kurzberg, second. Member Donahoe, all those in favor? All those opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you much for that support. We appreciate it. Will keep us on our time frame.
Thank you.
Yes, sure.
I believe we do the master plan update.
Did you have administrative updates on the, I don't think you did it.
Oh, did he skip through? Oh, okay. We're holding on the master plan. We're gonna be doing the administrative updates.
Thank you very much. So the committee had asked a couple times for facilities updates. I wanted to share some things that have been happening over the last month, facilities wise. We had some work completed at Flaherty School on a new space, one of our programs, kind of an area that students can use to de-escalate their behavior. There's also updates over the vacation to our security at DHS. Make sure that we have appropriate people coming in the building and getting them in correctly. Obviously, the heating systems at our school is something we're consistently monitoring during these months. Every Thursday, myself and Sarah Kaufman meet with DPW Director Jocks and Justin Zahn, Rob DeVito. We talk about the different things that are happening, and we're always talking about the heating that's happening in different schools. There's preventative maintenance going on, and then there's, of course, repairs as needed. And although it was a relatively warm weekend, if we go back to the week we came back to school after the vacation, there was some ice and some snow. So working closely with our DPW staff to make sure the parking lots and walkways are plowed and sanded, to make sure that our staff and our students are able to get into the building and get out of the building correctly. Our custodians take care of the area, the walkways, but our DPW takes care of the parking lots. And so we're very appreciative of the work that they do. And on top of that, I wanted to mention that, as you guys are all probably aware, we're starting our work on redoing our district strategic plan. Our plan expires at the end of this year. And I think we all feel that it needs to be updated and modernized. Do some connections. We've hired a consultant for a very, very small fee to assist us in this process. I'm going to turn it over to Nora Vernazza to talk a little bit about the process and the timeline.
So the consultant that we have hired is a facilitator through the Massachusetts DESE. And she facilitates the planning for success model for strategic planning. So this is a statewide model that they recommend using in order to create ongoing improvement plans. So there will be 6 sessions in total. Approximately 30 people will be in the strategic plan group. Principals sent out, and then I sent out today a call for committee members. And once we have that deadline and reviewed committee members, we will create a diverse group of participants so that we have stakeholders from all areas of the school department. And then we start by envisioning the future. We talk about a planning process, district data presentation, data and root cause analysis, drafting strategic objectives, and then finalizing initiatives and intended outcomes. So it will take the majority of the winter and spring with the idea that in early April, I think we're aiming to, at the end of April, so early May, we're aiming to present what we have at the school committee meeting.
How long is the form open for people if they're interested in participating? How long do they have to actually raise?
The participation is closing 5:00 on Thursday, the 15th. And the first session is January 23rd. The sessions are 9:30 to 12:30. I understand that's during the workday, which is challenging for people that work. There's only 4 sessions in total. But the consultant was very clear that she's done it with 30 different districts, and the districts that she did at night, she found were much less productive, and that the group's attendance was very varied and not consistent, whereas the groups that she did with morning sessions had consistent attendance and full participation with eager early morning. So we have taken her advice and scheduled them for that time, but it will obviously not accommodate some working families that can't miss those 4 sessions.
Any comments or questions? Dr. Hart?
I appreciate that explanation. I had a friend with children in school who works in K-12 education, and they came to me, "What's up? I would like to participate. I have expertise." And I know a lot of folks that work in the K-12 space, not here in the district, but in surrounding areas, and they have expertise that could really be helpful in forming the process. So I wasn't too happy to see the daytime. I can understand this 3 hours in the evening can be very difficult, as we know, for this meeting, right? So I just wanted to show you, express my concern about that. What other ways can people participate in this process if they are not on, if they do not secure a position on the committee?
So we will, I'm sure, be creating surveys and opportunities for people to provide input along the way. The facilitators lead the process, but there will be community forums at some point. And so there will be other touch points and opportunities for participation for sure. But we also have to, and I hear that and I totally understand it. But we have at least 15 of our K-12 educators on that committee. And so asking them to stay 4 to 6 times until 9 o'clock at night is also a big ask. So it's like weighing those components and stuff.
So will these community sessions be offered in the evenings, and or will you offer opportunities for people to participate, say, in a forum at the time that they have?
Yeah, we have not scheduled anything yet, so we can talk about that more as it gets closer. But I imagine them to be similar to when we did community forums for superintendent candidates. We had multiple forms of input, so we had surveys, and then we had opportunities for conversation.
That'd be great. Seeing that, so I see the public solicitation only needs a few people, because I see that you have a lot of people in district, and that's great. I just want to be sure, because it is such an important document that we're going to be producing, that we have community input for people who wish to contribute. So that's great. So basically, if anyone wants to contribute and is not selected for the committee, they should continue to watch Parent Square and for announcements on how to participate.
Definitely.
Thank you.
That only went out on Parent Square, the notice. Okay, so you wanted people with expertise in the community that don't have children in the system, and they would have no way of knowing about it.
I mean, they would have this meeting.
I don't know that we were having people outside of the school district necessarily, but we can talk about that.
For example, I know people who live in Braintree who are educational professionals. Their kids are not in the system yet, but I just thought it would be, Parent Square has the limit of who it gets to, and it does not.
We have internally to present anything. I mean, we can talk to the mayor about sending it out townwide.
It didn't get to me as a school committee member, so if you have kids in the school, then you probably got it. But since I don't have, my kids are all grown up, and I don't. Did you get it, Mr. Kurtzberg?
I do get Parent Square updates, yes.
Did you get the notice about the strategic plan committee?
Yes. I coach in the school, so I get Parent Square updates.
It's on the staff list.
All right, so I was left out of that notice then.
Maybe we post it on the social media for the Braintree Public Schools.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Member Donovan?
I have to echo the statements made by Dr. Horak about the timing of the meetings.
Yeah.
I'm someone who could never guarantee like 3 hours 4 times. Like, that's crazy. I think a compromise could have been made where it was 2 mornings and 2 nights. Because I mean, I think that's a little easier for people with a job to take a little bit of time off and then be able to offset that. So I appreciate consultants, but I don't always think they're 100% right. So
Other comments?
Yeah, I would agree also on the timing issue.
Member Fogarty?
Oh, excuse me. I agree with Member Horak and Member Donahue about the timing issue, which should be after business hours.
Anything else? All right, we will move to the master plan update. I don't know, you gonna say anything?
We have with us today our consultants from ERS here to share an update. So I'm going to hand it right off to them so they can spend as much time as possible giving you the update on where we are. Wonderful. Thank you. Excited to be back here. We've had a couple update opportunities with you all over the last couple months to keep you informed on the work that we're supporting the town and the district on. We have a little bit more to share tonight as we've done a little bit more of our analysis and started to gather some emerging insights. Most of what we wanted to share, as well as preview a little bit more on the process and especially some of the upcoming community engagement. We had shared a set of materials with you all as a pre-read. And so assuming that you all have had a chance to look at that, we're going to highlight a couple pieces of that pre-read, including doing a preview of a website that we've developed to share some of the data that we're going to share tonight. But we're not going to go in depth on that, though happy to answer questions from anything that you saw pre-reading document. So again, as you can see, we're going to do a little bit of a process update and then share some of those emerging findings and then talk a little bit about sort of the next steps. Just as a reminder, many people are involved in this work, but just so you know sort of who's been in the working group that's been leading this work. Jada and myself on the ERS team have been supporting the work along with a group of an architecture firm called Perkins Eastman. And then members in the room, including Mike, Sarah, Nora, and Mayor Joyce. And so I encourage you all to jump in as we're going through some of this. I know.
I am.
Okay, great, Nora. So a little bit of reminder, or for folks who are new, to bring you in a little bit into this process. So the work that we're supporting is ultimately developing a long-term facilities plan. And the goal of that plan is really to maximize opportunities to improve student outcomes and experiences, the community's desires for spaces that meet the needs of the community, and to sort of support the short and long-term fiscal responsibility. So that's the crux of this work. The phase that we're supporting in particular, that I'll show you a little bit of the timeline that we're in the midst of right now, ultimately is going to culminate in sharing to you all towards the end of February what our recommendations are for the path forward on the long-term facilities plan, including potential timelines, including sharing more details about all of the different options explored and what the sort of next steps would look like over that timeline. We previewed to you all a few months ago. We do have a website where we're sharing a lot of this information out to the public, including a community input survey that we've had open for a couple months. And you saw in the pre-read some of the findings and themes from that survey. But that's one of the mechanisms we have to be sharing some of the information out. So if you hadn't had a chance to look at it, we encourage you to. If you'll go to the next slide. It is a little bit of a reminder or a context setting for folks who may not be as familiar with this work, but this process, this long-term facilities process, is not the first conversation you all have had around facilities and schools before. There's been a lot of both analysis and work that has preceded this. And we just wanted to sort of restate that as a context setting for folks. There has been a pretty in-depth set of analyses conducted by the district, work that we've supported to really understand both the sort of fiscal and resource use context, but also what the current experiences of students and educators are in the building. So that's been an input for this. There's also been past conversations and initiatives, including the work that Sanborn had supported last year to think about different options. And I think Mayor Joyce, you said this in one of our recent updates, the school committee, the purpose of this moment in this plan is really to think more comprehensively and longer term. And so that you're going to see elements of that, I hope, in some of what we're sharing today. I think folks would add of our working group members in terms of that context setting. And then this is the process that we've shared with you all before. We are sort of right in the middle of this process. So part of what we wanted to bring to you all tonight was some of the data that we've collected alongside our friends at Perkins on some of the existing facilities data. We've gathered additional data that we'll also share with you tonight. We've had several conversations within our working group and with principals and other BPS staff around this vision for student and teacher experiences that really is serving as the anchor for how we think about evaluating different options. And the working group has spent several sessions now engaging in different options and scenarios and starting to understand what those options could look like and how they impact ultimately that vision and those criteria. And so today we wanted to bring some of those sort of findings and data to you all and give you a chance to just ask questions and help drive some of the sort of next work through the end of February. Great. Okay, so I'm going to voice over some of these. Again, there's more detail in the pre-read, and so happy to jump in with questions now or as we get into it. These first set of findings are really about the facility assessment. So when we looked at all of the existing facilities data that the town and that Braintree Public Schools has, as well as an analysis that you'll see that Perkins Eastman conducted called an educational adequacy assessment. These are some of the key findings that we are understanding. Some of this is not new. I should also name for folks who have seen some of this data before, including this first bullet point around the investments. So looking at the estimates that the town and Perkins have reviewed around the just capital maintenance needs. So this is just, your sort of maintenance, HVAC, not full system replacements. It's a pretty significant cost amount and one that right now exceeds what is in the sort of ongoing capital budget. Another thing that we've looked at and that you'll see when we preview the website and the dashboard is we looked at enrollment capacity, and Perkins Eastman helped to pressure test and vet, and in some cases update the enrollment capacity assumptions of the buildings based on current programming and use. And you'll see that capacity currentently outweighs the current enrollment and some of the future enrollment trends that we saw from the work that the proper GIS organization did for you all. The third finding around the educational adequacy assessments that you'll see is that there are differences between your schools in terms of the scores, which are really rooted in assessing the opportunity for buildings to support modern educational programming needs. That is a tool that Perkins Eastman has used in a variety of contexts. It's research back, and we can share a little bit more about what those look like. But I think the takeaway from their assessment is that particularly when you look at your middle schools, which obviously are newer and more sort of designed for modern programming, there are some differences between that and your elementary and your high school conditions. And then as part of that community input survey, and we've shared some of the data in the pre-read, there's a pretty consistent theme that we see in the data that we've gotten so far around highlighting just how hard leaders and staff work to make the buildings work for them, and a desire to see those facilities sort of better match the needs. Those are the sort of major facilities findings. Happy to take.
Can I ask a question now or? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we'll take a pause here and kind of answer some member forward.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So like under key findings, I mean, those findings are those are conclusions. So do we have access to like all the analysis that underlies them? Like I've read the Cropper GIS report. And number 2 just says our current facilities capacity exceeds our current and future projected enrollment needs. So I'd be interested in seeing like how the analysis, the data that went into that conclusion.
Yeah, we'll share some of the data that you'll see in the dashboard that Perkins developed for each school, and so you can see the enrollment capacity. Some of the analysis is not embedded deeply in that, but I think we could happily share that if you're looking for some of the sort of details behind these.
Well, just one question I had is the finding that the capacity of the schools is greater than what was previously thought?
It depends on the building. I think the overall capacity is fairly similar. I can highlight a couple areas where it's really different. The high school, for example, an original capacity number was a lot higher. What Perkins is showing, and part of that is just understanding the different class size ranges now. But but the facilities capacity is greater than the current enrollment, and that enrollment is projected to go down in the next 10 years as the Cropper report. So that's all that that's trying to imply.
But I would just say that I think under the Cropper report, I think it's like a drop of like 100 students. Say it's essentially staying level if that turns out to be true.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this portion?
I'll get a question.
Sure.
Okay, so on number one, it says a figure far greater than our current capital plan supports. I just want to know the size of that delta. So, I bring this with me. So this is a sheet that the previous DPW director made for us. It says our buildings need $97,799,491 worth of improvements, right? And so I keep this with me to remind myself why I'm here and why I ran to help school committee, because there's a lot of problems with our school buildings, right? So what is that delta for what the current capital plan supports?
Yes, you want me to answer that? So the mayor, in the last capital improvement plan that the mayor filed in May. So that's for the period of fiscal 25 through fiscal 29, 5 years. That contemplated, I think it was roughly about $31 million in general fund bonded support. So that's the capital we've used for the schools has largely been general fund, almost entirely. In some cases, we've had MSBA participate, but we're talking about like maintenance and large capital repairs. That 31, just to give you perspective, that includes everything that's general fund supported townwide. So that's schools, roads, facility maintenance, public safety equipment, all that stuff. So when we talk about the 100 million, I think and that's a 5-year period. I think it's important to put it in context of that larger budget. That capital plan just looking at the schools portion of it. We have roughly, I think it called for, I'm sorry, I'm doing this from the top of my head, but I think we call for roughly about $2 million in technology upgrades over 5 years. I'm sorry, 2 million, is that what I said? At the schools. And then there's a few other facility, there are not a few, but there's some other facility related in field and sports, athletic field repairs. But in total, it's we're talking about something in the range of probably about $8 million contemplated of that 31 I talked about. So not even really a fractional component of addressing that deferred maintenance backlog.
The $2 million in technology upgrades isn't on my sheet that we talked about before, because my sheet includes like the roof, the HVAC, the plumbing, asbestos abatement, like big issues that we need to get resolved that we just don't have the budget for in the next 5 years. Okay.
Any comments on that, on this portion? Or we'll move on. Okay.
Great. So I'll also share a little bit about the dashboard that I mentioned, and we can take a couple minutes to actually do a preview if you all would like. But we put the Perkins team put this dashboard together to help gather input from school leaders. So school leaders have gotten these dashboards so that they can help vet and validate some of the data in here, but also to be able to share the data more broadly. And you can see what's in the dashboard for each school. It includes building enrollment, square footage, and room inventory, updated enrollment capacity, and when that has differs from some of the original assumptions as Perkins has done their walkthroughs to align it based to the per needs. Dr. Horak, the sheet that you're mentioning, we've looked at that and updated that, one for sort of year-over-year inflation, and also some of the labor and contingency costs added onto that. So you're going to see that in the dashboard, and actually more ranges that sort of better capture the range of what those dollars could be once you add in those. And then the educational adequacy scores, we give you a preview of what those were intended to be last time, and they were in your pre-reading, but those are scores that Perkins Eastman did as part of their walkthroughs, and they have detailed data for each school as well as some of the summary trends. I'm happy to walk through that. I know the easiest way to do that on your laptop. We can go through and I can do that at the end. whatever you prefer. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, I'd go through the presentation and we'll do that. Okay.
Great. Then yeah, or if you want to go to the next slide here. We've also been spending time gathering input to sort of really hone the vision and the criteria by which we're going to evaluate some of those scenarios. These come from a combination of sources, including some of that analysis that I referenced that we came into this process with. Some of the community input themes have influenced how we think about what these experiences are and how to sort of measure them. We also had opportunities to talk with school leaders and curriculum directors and ultimately use this as a way to, as we're looking at different options, understand the impacts across a myriad of these sort of different vision and criterias. And when we come back at the end of this phase and share with you some of those options, you'll be able to see sort of how each option implicates some of these experiences. So you'll have it sort of as a matrix of different experiences. We don't have that today, but we've been working through some of the scenarios with some of this information to get a sense of sort of where we might want to explore more deeply some of the options and which ones really don't meet the sort of criteria that we've laid out here. That's a little bit just process update. And then the final sort of set of information we wanted to share is what the working group has started to understand about those options. So Nora, if you'll go one more for me. As we've looked at lots of different options, including ones that we've seen proposed in the community input survey, ones that have been sort of proposed by both Perkins and some of our past work. The group is starting to coalesce on a couple big themes of what we think is going to need to look different in the portfolio of schools. And so you can see those here. It likely includes things like repurposing Old South as an elementary site. It likely also includes reducing the footprint of schools by at least 2 sites. We have seen very consistent input from the community that modernizing the high school is a major priority. And so we're going to include options that have different levels of modernization and renovation in those. And then we're also exploring how grade and sort of grade level and school configuration allow the district to use the space differently. So these are not the recommendations, but this is some of the things that we've been understanding about how the options that we've explored sort of maximize those experiences and that vision. And I think maybe somewhat obvious to most finding that we're also sharing is that we think most of these options are going to require additional short-term investment. There just is not a way within the current budget, as Mike was just describing, to do these changes. And so that is, we think, likely going to mean having to eventually go to the community for either a debt exclusion or a prop override vote. So we wanted to sort of preview that now and sort of get a chance to share that with you.
I would say,
yeah.
How long is the community input portion of this?
We were not going to go deeply into that, knowing that we shared it as a preview, but we're happy to we're happy to answer questions if folks.
I mean, we can open it up for a few questions on this portion of it before we get into the survey data, I guess. If you guys want to kind of breeze through the survey data a little quicker, I don't think we need to get into that super deep, but if we want to talk about what they just talked about, we can kind of open it up for comments. Anybody comments or questions? Dr.
Can I
Moore?
build on what you asked, Mr. Rolo? You had asked about the survey, and when I go to BPS facilities plan.com, it shows the pop-up of the survey, and I don't want people to be misled. If they take the survey now, will their responses be counted?
Yeah, we've kept it open in part from feedback that we're still seeing some come in. And so we've captured what we've got to date, and we're continuing to monitor and update as we're getting new ones. The census mailer went out a few weeks ago, and so there was a big uptick then. But yeah, we're right now planning to just keep it open. Need to monitor responses.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Just since we're asking about the findings, so I just had some questions about like B, reducing our footprint by 2 sites, are you focusing on any particular sites in particular at this point, or is it looking at all the sites?
We're looking at all the different permutations, just so we can understand both from a experience perspective, a cost perspective, a feasibility. We're looking at like a bunch of different combinations of sites, but no, we haven't come to like 1 or 2.
And also section D, the reconfiguring grade school levels. Any indication of like where that's going? Like, is it what grade levels considering reconfiguring?
So again, mostly just exploring as options. I think one of the things that we see in the data is that there is a lot of capacity at the high school campus to potentially, add grade levels, whether that's like a junior high school, senior high school, potentially breaking up the elementary grades. I think, again, not any like definitive choices, but wanting to understand the implications of that. We've also had some conversations with school leaders to understand like programmatically what would drive that. I think that's obviously a major consideration if you're thinking about grade reconfiguration.
I would just say that I think section D, I think that's good to be looking into that, because that wasn't really considered really when we were talking about like the Sanborn project. That wasn't really it. So that's another mention to this that I think it's good that you're looking at it.
Member Hertzberg?
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you for being here. For part D, and I don't know how deep any of these discussions have gone yet, is like moving 8th grade to the high school kind of involved in those discussions?
That could be an option. Yeah, especially from just like a space and programming perspective. We've seen, sort of outside of the Braintree context, but I think nationally, one of the things we see is that 7th and 8th grade want access to some of the high school programming. And so if that was a priority, in this context, that could be one of the rationale for thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for B, reducing our footprint, I have no decisions. We're looking at all combinations. Are there any buildings in particular that just stick out that are going to be part of a lot of different combinations?
Not right now. And you'll see when you look at some of the data in the dashboard, like there's multiple inputs or what sites to consider, including enrollment capacity, the condition of the building, the location of it to other sites. And so, for any like math majors here, there's like, infinite number of sort of like combinations. And I think we're just trying to right now understand that of those combinations, we think it's going to require at least 2.
Sure. Thank you.
I was thinking maybe we could, if we can, pull up the dashboard now and then the survey part after, because we're kind of building off of that. I just want to say the one thing about the EA scores, I think the best way that it has been sort of synthesized for my brain in the process is it's not necessarily about the condition of the building. It's kind of about what our staff is doing to utilize that space. And I think underscores that our staff's doing a fantastic job using spaces that aren't ideal to continue to keep BPS kind of chugging along.
Yeah.
So
if you don't mind driving, Nora, I'll give a voiceover as you go through it. So you'll see there's a landing page that describes a little bit more in detail what each of the data points are and some summary views. So you can see the first section is really the enrollment and capacity of each of the buildings. And so you can see the number of current students over that capacity number and sort of what that equates out in each building as a percentage. The next section is the educational adequacy, and we've given a little bit more language about what those are and how to think about them. And so you can see, I think, exactly what Mr. Rowler, you just said. I think this is really about how the space is used and its appropriate and adequacy for enabling the programs and the instructional model. And so you'll see some of the categories that are included in that are a little bit more expansive than you might typically see in a sort of a facility condition assessment. And they're looking at different things. And so then you can see some of the high level trends in the district. And so, Yeah, we can even pause on this visual just since this is new data for folks. These are each of the educational adequacy scores for each school. You can see they're scored and then ranked as sort of a fair, I think it's poor, fair, good, excellent are the 4 categories. And so no schools in Braintree fell into that poor ranking. There's 2 that are fair. And then you've got the 2 middle schools showing as excellent and the rest are in that good range. When we'll show one individual school so you can see a little bit, but you'll see that there's a breakdown that shows each of those categories and the ratings for each school. A little bit more on the EA assessment, and you all would welcome you all to look at this outside of this time as well. But just wanted to give a little bit of the preview of that. I think that's the last section. Yep, and then you scroll back up to the top, Nora, we can maybe look at one school just so you can get a sense of the data, your choice on which one you want to pick. Great. So you can see just a little bit of like demographic information about the school up at the top. There's a distance to other locations and a map of where the school is. You'll see the enrollment and capacity and utilization. So the original capacity, I'm fairly certain comes from a 2002 TAPI report. And then the updated one that Perkins Eastman has done. You can see those sort of summarized versus the district averages. And then the last 2 big categories of data in here, the left side is that facilities needs. So what you were referencing before, the maintenance data. You scroll down a little bit more. You can see those numbers in ranges now that account for some of the construction and labor and contingencies. And then the educational adequacy is broken down by those subcategories for each school. And so you can get a sense of where schools may have ranked higher or lower on the assessment. And then some summary stats that just put some of that data in context for other schools. But that's now available for all of the schools. We are working on having one for Old South, which doesn't have an educational adequacy score because it's not a building that's currently in use, but will have some of the capacity and other information, considering that some of the options do include using that site. And so want to have that data available to folks.
Can we just say the URL of this? So it's BPS facilities plan dashboard.com. So
yes. Okay. And I think it should be in the presentation materials so that you have access to that afterwards.
Anybody have comments on the dashboard or anything else? Member Fogarty?
Thank you. I did have a question. I understand that there's an educational adequacy score and then there's another score that has to do with like more the facility itself as opposed to the education piece. We talked about this at previous meetings. Is
FCI number? Is that what you're referencing?
What's it called?
Facilities Condition Index?
Yes.
Or FCI?
Yeah. Is that data available on the site as well?
So that says it's the one that says TBD. So that's going to get filled in.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, the Perkins team is working with the town on creating sort of an estimated FCI. So I am not the facilities expert here. Our Perkins friends are, so I can get you more answers from them. But
sorry, Jess, there's 2 pieces of that are sort of relevant, and the piece that is important. So that is essentially that's essentially a ratio of the cost of the deferred maintenance versus the cost of building new, essentially. So the cost of building new is something that we want to have a good approximate. There is a lot of MSBA data that allows Perkins to make an estimate of this, but they want to make sure that we put out numbers. I think the thing I would just say to the committee that's important and builds off of this large number we're talking about, $100 million, is that none of the schools, the K through 4 schools, are going to score well here. Coming back to, I think it was member Kirk's question about sort of what options there are. We're looking at a lot of different things because there isn't really there's no school that doesn't have a meaningful backlog of deferred maintenance, unfortunately. Some have had updated roofs, no windows and things like that you can point to a few things we've partnered with MSBA, but for most of them, particularly what we consider the critical mechanical elements, like that's heating, electrical switchgear, those things, we have a substantial amount of investment that we need to be made. So when that score is populated, we want to put some context around it, that you will see it consistently. The readout is going to be consistently showing a vast substantial backlog across all of those schools and at high school.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Dr. Horvath?
This is really useful. I really appreciate this work. And I can see that the community will really appreciate this to help us make informed decisions. So this is being part of our capital master plan facilities project, which is being done now. But this dashboard is going to be very useful if it's updated in either quarterly or every 6 months or yearly. Who will do that work to keep this updated after this capital master plan project has been completed?
I think some of the metrics are fairly static, like in terms of capacity, the educational adequacy. I think the thing that would change the most is like updating the capital needs deferred maintenance. If something happens, given some of the years of inflation, there is actually in this an opportunity to like look at what it would cost per year by just calculating some of those inflation costs. But other than current enrollment, most of these are fairly static, or you wouldn't expect big changes over the next couple of years. But I think you could, think about what data you would want to refresh and think about that for sort of ongoing opportunities to share that information.
And I can think like enrollment might vary a little bit, but
yeah, definitely.
There's a big steel shortage or lumber shortage, right? That's going to change. But I'm thinking like when we do a punch list of we got that check off, and then we can update our dashboard. Who will do that work?
If I just maybe a thought on that. I think this is, from my perspective, this is the first time the town has really tried to visualize, I think, some of the challenges that the folks who are sort of in the trenches every day, facility side especially, sort of kind of have a hard time talking about. So I feel like this is like our first step in visualizing this data, but I think as we start to make decisions and move forward, we'll probably craft some version of our own sort of dashboard, whether it's through, a holistic school facilities dashboard. We have pieces of that through what I think used to be School Dude, but might now be Brightly, where we can have, get all of our buildings and our resources on that and better tracking systems. So it's definitely the direction we're looking at. So I think whether it's, this dashboard or maybe something that's even a little bit more in tune with our needs, I think it's important to continue visualizing and putting your data somewhere that people can see it as they're thinking about, leaders making decisions or just the public wondering why we're going in a direction. So I think whether it's this dashboard or something else, we have to make sure that we have that kind of tracking, monitoring, and this doesn't become, a static, document that we forget about. So
that's exactly what I'm concerned about, right? Because the value to the community and to this body and to administration is the regular updates. So we can keep monitoring when situations change, and so we can keep track of these big ticket items year to year. So we can plan for them. So you're saying, so if I'm understanding what we're seeing here with this BPS facilities plan dashboard, this will likely be more static, a one-time use for this, and then we'll develop our own later for a regular updates.
I think we haven't really talked about it internally, but I would imagine that would be the case, sort of this dashboard and will become, a snapshot of where we are, but maybe not the best formatted system for what we want to manage and what we're going to be tracking, in the future. I think I would envision more specific information as we feed it in is about specific work orders, specific, maintenance, things that we're either committing to doing or are on the radar of doing. Right now, especially on the facilities cost side, it's generalized, and I wouldn't expect, we would sort of want to, I don't expect we would be able to take that expertise in-house, but I think Perkins Eastman has been really growing this out, and we have those resources inside. to take on their version, but I do think we'll have resources to kind of create or use something we have to track what's important to us, which will look probably about many of those metrics.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, do you guys want to just touch on the community survey portion of this? And
Yeah, you want to? Yeah.
You can, great. Okay, so a couple of quick caveats. One is that the findings that you saw in your pre-read are as of, I believe, last Wednesday, Thursday, sometime last week. And because the census mailer went out recently, the numbers are continuing to grow. I believe we're closer to about an end of like upwards of 580 at this point. Most of those responses coming from parents and guardians and BPS employees. And then if you go to the next slide, we basically tried to break out what are some of the things that we heard or starting to hear working particularly well in the district. The following slide has the reverse of that. What are some of the things, the top areas for improvement? We do not want to suggest that like the sample size of like 580 is representative of what you're seeing on these slides by any means. These are just emerging themes. And like we said earlier, we plan on keeping the survey open so that we can continue to get some responses in and make sure that we can hear from a wide variety of people and perspectives. So in terms of what we heard is working particularly well, these are some of the big takeaways. Really like strong teachers being the backbone of this district and families really valuing a strong sense of community in their schools. And maybe unsurprisingly, folks feeling like the middle schools are a particular bright spot. On the following slide, you'll see some areas, top areas for improvement that folks noted. And these, I think, align with some of the findings that we shared earlier in the presentation. So folks really highlighting the need for modernization of facilities and also just the concern around upkeep for the facilities. Really highlighting the, high school in need of major upgrades, renovations, et cetera. And then finally, families wanting stronger academic programming or more consistent student supports. On this next slide, we have sort of like three big data points. 52% saying that buildings don't adequately support learning. Around 70% of folks highlighting that they would support repurposing, closing to invest in fewer or stronger schools. One thing that I'll note here is that while a lot of folks did say that they would support repurposing, closing to invest in fewer schools or would support combining smaller schools for efficiency, some of the things that they also highlighted for like the concerns around doing so are increased class sizes, transportation and traffic concerns, really wanting to make sure that the town and the district have a strong implementation plan, and then concerns around loss for community. So I think folks are like really trying to like toggle between the nuance around these incredibly challenging decisions and are recognizing really what's on this following slide, I believe, or the headline for this slide, which is that folks really value the education that this district provides and just want the facilities to match that as much as possible. And then I think the last slide here are just a couple of quotes from the community survey itself to highlight some of those themes. Folks, again, emphasizing the need to update our school buildings, really wanting the high school in a better place, understanding that when schools are properly supported, that sort of trickles down to the rest of the entire community. So yeah, I will pause there to see if there are any questions on the community input survey. I think that was the last slide. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Any questions on the survey today?
Thank you. Thank you. I did have it's kind of a comment on slide 16 where the 70% would support repurposing
Yeah.
That's if fewer stronger schools, 58% would support combining smaller schools for efficiency. So I think the question on that came from was question, pull it up. Excuse me.
I think I
13 in the survey, and it said, you know, if the district needs to, I'll just summarize it, if the district needs to make trade-offs to enable the experiences identified above, with this current set of resources, which types of changes would you be most willing to support?
Yep.
And select up to 2.
Mhm.
In those two, the 70s, those two options that are 70%, 58% were 2 of the options, but the other options were very like unpalatable. They were like it was like limiting opportunities for special classes, raising class sizes.
Limiting elective courses.
Yeah, so the question does sort of lead to that conclusion that that one would support those options, and they are legitimate options that I think should be considered. But I just caution against like that being used to create like a mandate that means that the community is behind combining smaller schools for efficiency, et cetera, just based on that question.
Relative
sample
to
size.
trade-offs or decisions. I think that's important. No, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you guys for this. Obviously, we'll be seeing you quite often over the next couple of months. So look forward to seeing things progress.
Thank you all. Thank you.
So we'll be moving to from the school committee for our student representative reports first. I do want to note, I am contemplating trying to move you guys up in the agenda going forward. So if you had any thoughts on that before you actually talk about maybe being one of the first kind of bullet points, if you have work, you can kind of get out of here early and not sit here for 3 hours. But you guys can kind of maybe give me a thought on that and then read your statements.
Yeah, sorry for my voice. I'm over a cold as well. I think that would be productive, definitely. For my update, good evening. I just wanted to take some time tonight to highlight the achievements of DECA, which stands for the Distributive Education Clubs of America. This club was described by one of the officers, Kaylee Wu, as a sum of business, creativity, and collaboration, as students have been working together to tackle specialized role plays centered around marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. Just last week, Braintree DECA attended a district competition financed by immensely successful fundraisers, amassing almost $5,000 with one fundraiser entirely student-led. And with this dedication, Braintree DECA was able to double the number of students from the prior year that qualified for states and received medals. 13 students will continue on the Massachusetts State DECA Conference on March 12th in Boston, and the club has aspirations for attending nationals this year. With their incredible showing of 18 award winners, we have no doubt that they will continue to excel. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I also agree with Ruby. I think that definitely moving up our student representative reports will be efficient. So for my report, as we move further into the school year, seniors are in the final stages of completing their regular decision college applications. This period has been both exciting and intense as students have been efficiently balancing deadlines and academic workload. All this would obviously not be possible without the support of counselors and teachers in helping seniors stay organized and remain confident as they submit their applications. Additionally, the science team has created the bulletin board outside of Principal Kuthers' office, featuring 10 study tips to encourage stronger academic habits. The bulletin board aims to offer practical strategies such as eating breakfast, finding a study spot, and teaching a friend to help students easily apply them to their academic journey and improvement. At the same time, club members on the science team are preparing for upcoming Science Olympiad at UMass Amherst on February 15th, in which I will specifically be researching about diseases and applying it to how accurately I can apply these to scenarios during the Olympiad. Additionally, we've also started talking about the Women in Science competition in late of March, in which teams will participate in challenging events, trivia, and problem-solving skills using their scientific STEM knowledge. As all students across BHS prepare for the end of term 2 and the upcoming media exams, they're extremely busy and as they aim to finish this first semester strong. Thank you.
regarding moving up the student reports, I'm completely fine with that. I think that'd be great. And as for my student report, in the past month at BHS, there have been two new organizations established. First, the Math National Honor Society, otherwise known as Mu Alpha Theta, and secondly, the Science National Honor Society. Now, much like other honor societies at BHS, these were created with the goal of uniting high-achieving students in these areas to spread interest in math and science across the Braintree school system. And each of these societies has the goal of completing at least one large project by the end of the school year at either the elementary, middle, or high school levels to get students interested in these areas. The first meeting for the Math Honor Society was last week, and the first meeting for the Science Honor Society was today. So I'm really excited to see what we can do in the next 4 or 5 months before the end of the school year, and hopefully I can update you guys on that.
Good evening. I agree about moving us up on the agenda. That would be nice. For my update, I wanted to touch on how AI has been impacting us recently. I feel like last year AI was just there all of a sudden and this new resource for everyone. I understand the argument that AI is a part of our world now and it's not going anywhere, so we should learn to use it. But it doesn't seem like kids are using it as a helpful learning tool. It feels like it's undermining or cutting out the learning process for a lot of students, especially since it has become such a commonly used tool. There's no restrictions to AI on our devices. Anyone can pull up ChatGPT at any time and have it do any assignment for them. It's a huge temptation to have all the answers at your fingertips all the time, especially if you're slammed with work, just don't understand the material, or really need something to boost your grade. It's not like Google. Sure, with Google, you could look up a simple math problem or a certain fact and have the right answer pop up for you to use, but Google wouldn't be able to analyze a passage for you or answer a more complex question from your teacher or generate the answers to an entire assignment or write an entire essay within seconds. But ChatGPT can do all of that and more. It cuts out really important life skills like critical thinking, creativity, and reflection, and it's really hard for our teachers to catch while it's been used more and more. It puts a strain on what we're able to do in the classroom, and teachers have had to rework lesson plans they've been using for years to try and prevent AI use. In my experience, we have had to change to do in-person writing assignments almost exclusively, and some teachers don't assign homework as much anymore because it's just not worth it if AI is what they're going to get back. Of course, this is a major issue for education everywhere, so I don't expect you guys to have some magical solution, but I just think it's something that's very important to be aware of going forward, and we should be paying attention to possible policy changes or programs other schools are employing to try and limit our ability to use AI.
That was great, and I would urge you guys to keep telling us that, because I think that's like this huge thing that we have got to do a little bit better and have to be a little bit more proactive, and I think there are ways that we can make small changes to make it a little bit better. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments from the student rep reports? So moving on to the Policy and Education Subcommittee update.
Thank you. So the Policy and Education Subcommittee last met on October 14th of 2025. And we moved forward a number of policies to the full committee to ensure that there was sufficient time for a second reading if needed before the new committee was seated in January. So once the chair determines who is going to be on the policy subcommittee, we will need to set and schedule a meeting. The agenda should include recent policy updates proposed by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. They've suggested that, and the Attorney General's office has suggested that we address raffles and games of chance operated by parent organizations, student groups in schools, how PTOs can comply with the requirements of local, state, and federal law, and how districts should oversee fundraising activities, how gift solicitations by staff should be handled. So pending appointments to the subcommittee, we tentatively thought that Tuesday, January 20th at 6:45 p.m. would be a good time for the next policy meeting.
Lastly, we're going to go to our Finance and Operations Subcommittee update, which I believe Sarah's going to give. Yeah.
So the Finance and Operations Subcommittee last met on Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. We briefly reviewed the FY 26 year-to-date budget performance, actuals first budget, and then we spent most of the time reviewing the FY 27 budget projections. My office continues to project a significant deficit versus the preliminary funding numbers that we are receiving from Town Hall, so we will continue to analyze that. And the next meeting date for the Finance and Operations Subcommittee has not been set pending new committee member appointments.
And then there'll be a larger presentation about budget. When will we be seeing that in the full committee?
I think you tell me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so we'll try to get something more substantive for the full committee. Maybe on the 26th, we'll see. Any questions or comments before we hopefully get a motion to adjourn? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Member Kersberg, seconded by Member Donahoe. Member Tuffy?
Aye.
Member Kersberg?
Aye.
Mayor Joyce?
Yeah.
Mayor, Dr. Hoare?
Aye.
Member Fogarty?
Aye.
Member Donahoe?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Adjourned. All right, oh, got to do this. All right, thank you.
Thank you.